My name is Myla Tellez, and I want to welcome everyone to the 19th Century Charitable Association. And our vision is one for a dynamic cultural center for community learning. And I'm a member of the Science Program Committee here. We have 5 committees, and science is one of them. And we're very excited to bring this program to you today. Today's program is Enhanced Wellbeing with Herbal Support, tried and true from the beginning of time, and now it's scienced for you. And by who? Jane Hawley Stevens, an herbalist for over 40 years and a woman-owned farm for over 30 years, brings us the program today. She was chosen as 2020 Herbalist of the Year, Organic Farmer of the Year, her and her husband David. So that's a big designation because we're talking over the whole United States. And we're so blessed to have her here today to speak to us about her work. She also penned her book, The Celestial Garden. Let's welcome her.
Well, thank you to Myla and Niall for hosting me, and also the 19th Century Club for your invitation today. I'm really happy to be here. You're giving me a chance to live my dream and my truth, which is to connect people to nature. I feel like nature supports us in so many ways that I feel like it's my job to, educate people about how many ways nature supports us, and especially through the lens of herbs and plants. So this is our beautiful farm. We are an hour north of Madison, Wisconsin, and my husband and I both have horticulture degrees, and we've developed these gardens, and I have to say with local talent, and so I have some young women who help me in the field now. So a bit of the lay of the land is, you can see we're in the Baraboo Bluffs, like we're on top of a ridge that is luckily flat. And down below there's a lot more farm fields, and there's not a lot of farming up where we are because it's very rocky. It's like on top of an old mountain range. But that preserved it then from having too much agriculture there. You can see that we have solar panels up to the right of the silo there, and that runs like the heat of the barn and our herb dryers and all the electricity. So that's actually a really nice feature we added. And then right over here, you'll see a little structure right on the edge, and that begins a garden, an educational garden, based on the chakra system, which is an Eastern way of looking at the body. And so it's divided into 7 areas, and plants are in each of these areas to show people how various plant groups can support different parts of the body. It's a really wonderful way to teach. So if you come to the open farm day, usually in June, you could come and we do a wonderful tour through there and then go through the cultivated fields. So as it says on this slide, I cannot claim to treat, diagnose, or cure diseases. I'm under FDA guidelines as I consider myself a folk herbalist, not a doctor. Because I'm not a doctor, the FDA considers all of these herbs, even though they're traditional and have been used for thousands of years on various continents for the same purpose, they're considered not really validated. So I have to phrase everything correctly so I'm not breaking any guidelines, such as helps to support a healthy vascular system or something like that. But I can't mention diseases. So this Myla kind of went through already, and so I can kind of skip it, but you can see, up closer, we have these nice rows of herbs, and we have been certified organic since '89, and I have to say it's really changed over the years. The certification process has gotten a lot more complex. And I'm also adding on a certification called Regenerative Ag, which is more about carbon sequestering, where you keep crops on the field more months out of the year through cover cropping and various things like that. I have a short video here that will just run you through my history in the farm. What we do here at Four Elements Farm is grow herbs, certified organic, cultivate them in the best ways possible, harvest at peak potency to make our incredibly effective herbal wellness product line, Four Elements Organic Herbals. Here we have 130 acres atop the Baraboo Bluffs, a very pristine area. This is where we cultivate all of our herbs. I start the transplants in the greenhouse, we plant them out in the field, grow them organically, mulch them, harvest them, and then the herbs are dried in our dryer and then brought down to the apothecary, which is just 8 miles from here in North Freedom, Wisconsin. That's where our offices and manufacturing and shipping is. We have plants that help to support healthy lung function, healthy skin function. Our immune system is so important, and really plants that help to support the whole body system. When my son was born in 1987, I really started learning about the magic of herbs. He had repeated earaches. After taking him to the doctor several times, decided maybe I'll try a natural remedy. That remedy for my son's earache worked so well that I converted into somebody who was constantly wanting to learn how plants can help us maintain our well-being. From that one little weed, mullein, that I used for my son, my business has expanded into over 70 herbal products, as you might see from these lovely gardens. I really want all of my customers and really everyone everywhere to know that nature's here to support us on our healing path. The more we can engage with nature, the better off our health would be. And so we here at Four Elements grow our herbs in order to connect you back to nature, because that's what it's all about. I really want to encourage you to buy organic. When you buy organic, you're supporting people who take the extra steps to take care of the earth so it'll be healthy for future generations. Plus, what you put on or in your body will be free from all those chemicals that are developing so many sensitivities. I encourage you to buy organic, and you can trust at Four Elements that we have very pure organic products. You're supporting people who partner with this earth. So that's kind of the quick history there, and I'll get back to these slides. So I've always taught my herb lectures from the vantage point of a folk herbalist, but Myla's on the science committee, so she asked if it could be through the lens of science. And so it was really interesting and fun for me, because I have so many great herb books, to be able to, present this topic today through the lens of science. So that's what I'll be doing. And just so for me, because herbal medicine goes back, whenever they find a mummy, they'll usually find a little bag of herbs with that mummy. Herbs and people have developed together. They're very effective and have always been used. Through all the years, sometimes some of the remedies have been found through intuition or through experience, the previous generations, observation, even of wildlife, and more. But, now we have all the science that can help to support that. And I really appreciate that there are so many ways and lenses through to look at herbs that will help to educate all different sorts of people, from the doctors to the kids. Whatever language they speak, there's a way to talk to them about herbs. So the 7 ways that we're going to be discussing them today are through these 7 categories: the scientific, constituents: the carbohydrates, the amino acids, phenolic compounds, terpenes, steroids, and alkaloids. So many plants have many different of those, so plants don't fit into just one category. So, like, say, like burdock, for example, would be under carbohydrates and phenolic compounds and a few different things. But anyway, it's a nice lens for me to teach this subject. And I really like this phrase that sometimes people are very skeptical, like, how could a plant make a difference to my health? Like, it's just something that's growing in the ground or that I could step on or whatever. But we all trust that coffee works, and coffee is a plant, and it's not just folklore that somebody told you, like down the street, somebody said caffeine and coffee wakes you up. No, that's just one example, and the more I study herbs as the years go by, the more I learn on how many plants and how different ways they can really support us. And we all know sugar is a biggie too, right? It can make your body switch and even go into diabetes. So like these plants, it's just so fascinating to see how they work. So we'll start with the carbohydrates here. So that means, oh, yeah, thank you. I got a great tip to stand over here. Thank you. All right. So carbohydrates is our first classification that we're going to be looking at. And those are like the sugars and starches and things like that. So, for example, inulins, if you've ever cut open like maybe even a turnip or something where a little white sap comes out that seems kind of milky, for sure burdock has it. Those can be inulins, and inulins are a prebiotic, so they help your gut get ready to digest, and so they can support your health in that way. They stabilize blood sugar. This is why I'm such a big fan of burdock, for example. I'll be mentioning it a few times today. Because it just has so many wonderful actions to support us. And I wouldn't doubt, even if the sugar beet has burdock in their produce section, and you can grate it up with carrots and make it into a vinaigrette. It's a salad, a typical salad in Japan called gobo salad. And in fact, I had a friend and a neighbor working for me she took great care of herself. She was a retired art teacher also. And she came to work one day and said, I think I have gout in my toe. And I said, oh, I think we'll make a gobo salad for lunch, and that burdock will help clean your blood, and we'll see what happens. So we made this burdock. I made her the burdock salad for lunch, and she said the gout was gone the next day. Like these plants, I have so many examples of where I say, there's nothing you can get at a pharmacy that would work as well as a plant in many instances. So with plants, we're talking about a broad spectrum of supporting like various body systems. And there's certainly times when pharmaceutical drugs are needed. I consider them more like a bullet, going for one specific thing in your body, whereas herbs are more broad spectrum. They support you in more ways than just like one intentional drug, for example. So with these plants that contain inulins, not only are they prebiotic, but they're anti-cancer, but in a way that helps your body function better. Like your liver can be functioning better, and the liver is our filter system. So by supporting the various body systems, we can call it anti-cancerous. It helps in inflammatory bowel issues. So there's another plant that I'm thinking of that's really good for the throat and coughs called elecampane, which is also contains inulin. But they also have a component that's soothing to the tissues, like mucilaginous compounds. These are plants like comfrey, plantain, burdock, marshmallow. These are, so mucilaginous means they're gooey and kind of slimy textured, like an aloe. Probably everyone here has tried an aloe leaf and has felt the mucilaginous quality of that. Those type of plants are really great for topical skin healing. And, I've heard stories that for severe burns, aloe can really help to regrow the skin, better than anything made in a lab. It's just amazing to be able to experience all these plants and how well they work. Comfrey is one of my favorites under the mucilaginous category here because it's so emollient. You can use the root or the tops, and they're especially wonderful used topically. There has been a controversy of taking them internally if you took a whole lot, but there's very few issues where somebody really got hurt with that. It's more of a warning situation. But anyway, comfrey topically is great. It has a component in it called allantoin, which is cell regenerative. It actually helps stimulate cell renewal. I'm going in to get my hip, a brand new hip for Christmas, and I have comfrey in my freezer ready to go. So, they're in little packs. The plants are very easy to grow. If anyone has one in this room, you could probably share them with everyone because it grows so prolifically. By applying that to your skin, it helps the skin regenerate, and it has been used even internally for broken bones. And my own phrase, this one is just folklore, just that comfrey almost has a memory of where bones are supposed to go, because I've seen it happen before where people with fractured or injured bones applying comfrey topically can help really align those bones and have them seal up quicker than just if you let just nature take its course. And marshmallow is another very emollient root. This one is good for gallstones. The quality of marshmallow, it's a very interesting plant. It's one of the only plants where you extract it in a cold extraction. In other words, when you chop up that root, you just put it in a glass of water on your cupboard countertop overnight, and in the morning it's like an aloe gel. It's just super slimy and gooey. But it's almost gross how slimy and gooey it is, because I know I made one for my friend's husband who was trying to pass a gallstone, and he said he just could not take it because it looked too much like snot. So anyway, and then there's the polysaccharides. So these are immunomodulating, anti-inflammatory plants like echinacea, calendula, plantain, and astragalus. And I really should give a shout out to plantain here, because if there's any grassy parks around that don't spray their grass for broadleaf plants, you will find plantain in that. And I'm not talking about the banana plantain. This is, it's called a rosette when all the leaves are attached in the middle, and it's a very low-growing plant, grows in a rosette, and this plant will stop a bee sting or a mosquito bite instantly. And I love to teach this to kids, and it's almost like the bees are choreographed, because when I tell the kids about this plantain, and you'll find it in the grass, and you can just pick it up, and if you pick a pretty fresh leaf, at least where I live, I feel comfortable, you chew it a little bit, and your saliva activates the constituents in the leaf, and you can apply that to a bee sting or any kind of a bug bite. And I'm not kidding, this has happened a few times where within 5 minutes a bee comes and stings a kid. And I still remember both times where the kids are yelling, "It really worked!" So it's so beautiful because it's just out there in the grass, right where you are anyway and where the bees live. So it's just so handy, right? Better than trying to find a store and some calamine lotion. So calendula is a wonderful, beautiful plant, and I encourage anyone who has flower gardens to plant calendula. It's an annual plant, and it reseeds gently, not aggressively, but the flowers are so bright orange. They're just gorgeous, either orange or yellow, very iridescent, and that one is wonderful for scar tissue, especially for scar tissue. I use it in, like for my wrinkle products, because it's so regenerative and so softening. Plus it has a quality that is antifungal and like immunomodulating, anti-inflammatory, so it's so broad spectrum for a topical skin issue, for healing the skin. So astragalus is another one of my very favorite herbs that has a great herb story behind it. Well, that one is an immune system plant. Like echinacea, we'll talk more about echinacea on a different slide, but astragalus is a Chinese herb, and the part used is the root, but it is hardy here in Wisconsin or Illinois, and it helps to strengthen your immune system, much like eating blueberries or spinach would support good eye health, or by eating like raspberries or red fruits help to support the heart. So things that you could, like a tonic, something you could take day after day, that is like astragalus. So my mother was a retired RN, and she had back issues, so she had a lot of pharmaceutical drugs she was taking, and she got pneumonia 3 years in a row. And so I just said, Mom, maybe just try adding astragalus to your diet and see, you know, it's just going to make your immune system a little stronger. She was very religious and just put 2 drops, just drops, not droppers full, in her orange juice every morning, and she didn't even get a cold for 5 years. This is one of my very favorite testimonials. Then my brother, who worked at Medtronic, which was a heart pacemaker, he was writing the software up in Minneapolis, and was in a situation where there's a lot of people around in his office. And so he started taking it, and he found when other people would get sick, he wouldn't. So those are some great family stories from people who were not herbal to start with, but astragalus turned him around. And then the acid of the stinging nettles contain histamines. I have more on that in a coming up slide, but has everyone here who hasn't been stung by nettles? Wow, everyone has. Well, some people do that on purpose in order to get your inflammation down. It actually was an old folk remedy called where they would take nettles, and if you had inflammation or arthritis in your fingers, people would smack that on their hands and it would tingle, but then the blood would come in and the inflammation would go down. It was a real old-fashioned remedy. So this is the nettles, Urtica dioica, and so these contain histamines. So if you take enough of this tea, your body then creates antihistamines, and this is a very popular tea for the allergy season, and it's loaded with minerals. It has more chlorophyll than any other plant, and in fact, back when they started canning green beans, you know how sometimes green beans will lose their bright green color? They used to dye green beans with nettle juice. Yeah, what a great idea to get extra minerals, right? So I think they're delicious in the spring when they come out of the ground. Very nutritious. They taste a lot like spinach. And once they are dried or boiled or simmered or frozen, those stinging hairs collapse so they can no longer sting you. But they can cause a histamine reaction. I don't grow them much anymore because the girls who were working in my herb dryers were once had a reaction to them, and it was actually got a little puffed up. But that was like unloading 100 pounds of nettles. It wasn't like a cup of nettle tea. So next we'll talk about lipids. So this is another category of constituents that are like containing fatty acids. These are more fat soluble, and but these are found in seeds that enhance bone formation and eyesight, even like fish oil is fatty acids. In fact, when my daughter when she was born, she developed eczema really bad right from the start. And I gave up wheat and dairy, and she got better a little bit while I was breastfeeding her. She got better from me just giving up wheat and dairy. But then it was so weird for me to be an herbalist making skincare with this baby whose skin was erupting. So I had to give it a lot of thought on how and figure out how I could help her. One of the things was I did a lot of research and found there was a doctor specializing this in Boulder, Colorado, who informed me that people who have eczema have weak links in their protein digestion. So they have a harder time with wheat or things that are more difficult to digest. And by taking these essential fatty acids at the time, like flax oil, but also fish oil, evening primrose oil, those kinds of things, that really helped her come around too. But I just loved sharing that information because there's so many people who suffer from eczema, and I know that you can find those oil products like at the Sugar Beet. They're usually refrigerated because they have a shelf life. Other lipids are alkamides. These create a tingling sensation in your mouth. There's a few plants such as spilanthes, which I didn't list here, but that one really makes your mouth tingle. In fact, they've started making a gum for people who, like bicyclists or athletes, because it makes your mouth salivate so much. It's really fun during Open Farm Day to have people try spilanthes, and they all just kind of and start drooling. So yeah, it's kind of funny. I warn them though. And then echinacea is another one that has these alkamides that are really great for the immune system. Echinacea works differently than astragalus. Astragalus, like I said before, is a tonic. You can take it every day to help boost your immune system or just flex it like it's getting stronger every day. Whereas echinacea stimulates your immune system. You could still take it every day, but really this is one that I take when I feel like I've maybe been exposed to something, or when I want to get over a cough or any kind of infection quicker. Because what echinacea does is it makes your white blood cells proliferate quicker, which are the cells that go in to protect and kind of fight off the disease, any infection. And it also has a astringent quality. And I've learned that astringent plants can actually prevent, the way they help to prevent infection from spreading is because even just the action of an astringent plant pulling tissues together creates a stronger shield, so like fungal infections, bacteria, and things like that can't proliferate so fast. So echinacea has that quality. It is drying in a way, but it's such a beautiful plant to grow. I'm sure there are people who have this in their garden. And you can use the flowers and the leaf, which I collect to make for tea in the wintertime. And then after the plant is getting older, or you have a big enough plant that you can divide, the root you harvest in the fall. And that is a real powerhouse for your immune system. So it's a great thing to take when you're traveling. It'll just keep your immune system a little more like in fighting mode. So black pepper is also in this category and has antibacterial effects. You know, I love that a lot of these culinary herbs have great health benefits that we don't even think about because they taste so good. So I'll be mentioning some of those in upcoming slides. But yeah, I feel like when I make my soups in the winter and add a whole bunch of rosemary, thyme, sage, parsley, that I'm making my own flu shots, because it's just so effective. Okay, here's another slide on echinacea, how it enhances the immune system function. I mentioned the white blood cells already. It's great topically as well. Like if you feel like you might have an infected situation, like for example, I had a dog who got caught in barbed wire and really had a deep wound. So I first wanted to do some disinfecting, so I used sage, just common garden sage, and echinacea. I made a poultice, which means I just took the leaves and chopped them up and simmered them in water, let that cool down, and used that cooked herb, just slightly cooked, just so it was like active and starting to ooze out of the plant, and put it in like a clean sock or wrapped it in a towel or something so that could be applied topically. And the vet could not believe how fast this dog healed. Like, it's just amazing to see how these plants work. I really encourage everyone to grow echinacea because it's so beautiful, it's super easy, it's a perennial. There's just, if you have any space, this is a great one to grow. So our next category will be amino acids and the derivatives of that. This is where the amines lie, like the histamines that we talked about in nettles, also the ephedrine in ephedra. So ephedra is a plant from China that looks kind of like a succulent or a cactus. It just has little stalks that come out, really no leaves. And I collected some when I was in Texas once from somebody's garden, and I remember just moving it from one container to the next, and even the dust just opened up all of my chest and bronchioles. And the thing is, it speeds up the heart rate a little bit. And during the 80s, this plant was abused, which I call truck stop herbalism, where they made like herbal speed, herbal sex appeal, and they made really bad, non-traditional blends that ended up using ephedra in a way that wasn't beneficial. So this plant got pulled from the market, although unless you're a practitioner, but it was used successfully with wise practitioners for thousands of years. Then there's the glucosinolates, which have a pungent quality, which you can find in horseradish, wasabi, nasturtium, and the brassicas, which are broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage. Broccoli, cauliflower, and cabbage and those types of plants have a strong anti-cancer quality about them. Like, this is, to me, it's important really to eat those every week. I love them though. I was once known as the cabbage queen. They made me a crown out of cabbage leaves. So anyway, but I love that plant, but it really is just so potent. And we don't often in our culture, we don't think of food as medicine as much. But you can really make great choices just in the grocery store that will really improve your health. That's what I think this is so wonderful you all showed up today, that you can learn a few tricks that can really make a difference in you and your family's health by just making different choices. So there's a saying in herbalism, when you go to the grocery store, you go to the outer edge of the grocery store and you don't go down the aisles, because that's where just the regular food is, not the mixtures in boxes. So you have like produce, and then cheese, and then like dairy, meat, fish, and then whatever on the other side. But if you go down the middle, there's like, if you read what's in all those box ingredients, some words you might not be able to pronounce. So the glucosinates have those pungent qualities. And like horseradish and things like that can really open up your chest. Like if you have congestion, if you don't mind horseradish, that could actually work as well as something that you would get in the pharmacy. And then the sulfur compounds, which are also in the cabbages that we were just talking about, they also have sulfur compounds, as well as the alliums, which is onions, garlic. Those are strongly antimicrobial and antifungal. And this has been proven in double-blind studies that they can work on Staphylococcus, Salmonella, Candida. It also has liver-protecting, anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and antibiotic properties. So garlic, especially when you can get the whole clove and if you chop it, to quickly put it in your food so you can extract it right into your food that you don't lose the qualities. Or if it's too strong for you, there are prepared garlics in the health food stores that are freeze-dried or something that you get all the qualities without the flavor, if that bothers you. But, just by eating garlic can help to keep you healthy. And onions. There's, I've read about it. I haven't tried it, but like an onion poultice, you tried that, Brianna, didn't you?
I heard about it.
Yeah, okay. So we're even just cutting up a slice of an onion if somebody's super congested in their chest and putting a cloth there first or a t-shirt and then putting an onion there. It's so antiseptic, it can help to clear up the lungs. I don't have lung issues, so I've never tried it, but anyway, it's interesting to think about that. So the cyanogenic glycosides, these are things that are in violets and elderberries. They're slow reacting, but has incomplete digestion. Okay, so what this means is, you see glycosides, and this goes back to this compound cyano, would be like cyanide, right? So they have the precursors to this, but the way our body works with these, it's so slow to digest it. It would be like a drop here and a drop there. Like people don't die from black elderberries. I wouldn't be here today. I'd be dead. But these, it's so wonderful to point this out in a way that our body and the plants co-evolved in such a way that, it's extracted so perfectly within our bodies. Elderberry, well, I got a slide on that, so I'm going to that next. So elderberries. This one gained so much popularity in the last few years for every good reason. Of course, it was very popular during COVID because it does have an antiviral component to it. So I have this picture here because around the 4th of July, if you're driving around and you see these type of bushes with that kind of flower, a little bit off-white in the distance, they're usually on a wood's edge or maybe along train tracks or something. The berries will produce right around when the tomatoes are really ripe. And that's when you can collect the berries, although the flowers are also very helpful, and the flowers have a different quality. So the flowers, well, first of all, this is called the medicine chest of the folk people, which I love that little name because all parts of it are useful. And I always adored this plant. And I read about it. I have 100 herb books, and some of them say, this was so esteemed back in old Hungary that the people there tipped their hats as they walked by the elder. And about probably 15 years ago or so, I was at the Baraboo Farmers Market, and somebody from Hungary came up and said, "Oh, we use this so much in our country. We love the elderberry. In fact, we tip our hat when we walk by it." And I thought, wow, folklore is real. So anyway, the flowers, though, are for, it's called, it opens up, if you have the flu and you just can't get over it, it helps to sweat out the fever. It opens your pores. It's called diaphoretic. So it helps to open the pores and this is an old-fashioned remedy to get rid of a flu, or if you just your body can't fight it off. Like a hot bath, a cup of elderflower tea, and you go to bed and put on a bunch of covers. Your skin is your largest organ, and it really can help to detoxify you. And that was another old-fashioned remedy on how to get rid of a flu. But then the berries have been proven in double-blind studies to be antiviral. I always thought, how did they ever trick the other side of the group of the double-blind study, the control group? But then I realized grape juice or something. So maybe half got grape juice, half got elderberry juice. And this was in a kibbutz in Israel where everyone would live very close together. And so everyone would get the flu together and, got well about the same time. So one of the scientists there gave half of them elderberry. And they found that those who took the elderberry had less symptoms and got over it quicker. My experience from when there was flus going around the schools, I would be giving my kids elderberry syrup that I made, and they would be sick for a day or two. And these were flus that typically lasted like a week. And then when our family got COVID, we were sick for just 2 days or so. So, I will give the credit to elderberry, but that part isn't scientific. That is, just a story, is what the FDA would call that. Anecdotal, that's right. So, but all parts have medicinal uses. Some are better topically, like there's a lot of these, those compounds that could be toxic internally in the leaf and in the bark and the root. But those are great for fungal infections, so it's great topically. They say that this plant was loved by the gypsies because it would heal so many different things. So I love the elderberry. It's one of my faves. Okay, so the next chemical group we'll be talking about is the terpenes, and it comes from the word like turpentine, as in pine. So pine and like pine sol, I don't know where it came from, but pine tea became very popular during COVID. And I didn't find it in the herb literature, so I'm not sure where it came from. But when I thought about it, I thought, well, pine is very antiseptic. And also, when you smell pine, I call it like the eucalyptus of the north. Like, if you picture that piney smell, it goes right to your lungs. So I thought, well, it would make sense, just thinking about it, that this could be of some support for lungs. So we started making pine tea and a pine tincture, which were very popular. So the terpenes are like, if you ever buy an essential oil, that's a lot of what's being captured in the distillation of the plants that are real aromatic. I can make essential oils, but they're so minimal because you would need a lot of equipment, much bigger equipment. The byproduct is a hydrosol. So this one here is a hydrosol, which means I distilled the white sage, which is the plant around it. A distillation goes like this. So I have a still, and you put water in the bottom quarter of a container about this big, and then the plants are suspended over that in a container that, like with holes in it that are not touching the water. You sealed that tight with a condenser on top that water is flowing through. And when you add heat to the bottom, it makes the water simmer, the steam rises through the plants, and these volatile oils, or the terpenes, pop out. It's like when you smell your mint tea or your lemon balm tea. Those are the qualities we're talking about here. They're very volatile. That's why when you brew a cup of tea, it's good to actually cover it while it's steeping, because most of the flavors are in those volatile oils. But they're very antiseptic. These terpenes are super antiseptic. When you think of some of these things like orange or lemon, pine, a lot of these things have been used in cleaning products. And the old Lysol, I think it was Lysol or Listerine, I'm not sure, but one of them had thyme, or in our kitchen herb thyme. Pine Sol, thank you, had thyme as one of the ingredients. It's so antiseptic. And maybe you need to get fresh herbs. Like if your herbs are old in your cabinet, maybe it's time to go get some. I think, do they have them in bulk at, yes, you can get really fresh ones at the Sugar Beet and make sure they're nice and potent. So when you add them to your soups and stews, you're actually adding medicine. So these have been proven, again, some of these antiseptic herbs, to stop salmonella, E. coli, even MRSA, and in common bee balm. Bee balm smells a lot like oregano, and really you could probably put oregano in that category. We don't think of these things as being so antiseptic, but they truly are. Rosemary has extra qualities of being very good for the brain, stimulating the brain. I think we all could use that. And white sage, similar to the common garden sage, is also very antiseptic. And then eucalyptus, too, very cleansing. You can just feel it and smell it. So then comes the sesquiterpenes. These are anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, antispasmodic, and antiseptic, like sage, clove, yarrow, arnica, and chamomile. So clove, if you ever have a toothache and you can't get to the dentist quick enough, clove essential oil, just a tiny bit, like on a Q-tip or something, and put on that hurt spot. It not only is it antiseptic, will help to stop the decay, but it's analgesic, where it takes away the pain. I've had that experience with yarrow, common yarrow, and I'm sorry I didn't put a picture of common yarrow up here because it grows all over the place. I'm sure you've all seen it out in the just wherever there's some wild places, or even near a train track or something like that. It's a Native American plant that is so antiseptic, and I knew it mainly for stopping bleeding. And I used to take it internally when I had heavy bleeding. But then, I heard that it was really good topically too. But in the old herbalism, like maybe 20 years ago, what I heard was don't put it on a wound unless you're sure your wound was not had any bacteria or anything in it. But then I've heard stories since then, and I've experienced it. There was an herb walk out west where somebody had, it was a backcountry herb walk, and somebody slipped down a rocky slope and really tore up their leg that had rocks in it, like some of the rocks had in it. And they were too far to go back, but there was yarrow all over the place. So they packed yarrow on the wounds and wrapped it in some sort of a cloth. And that evening, the yarrow not only was disinfecting it, but it pulled the rocks out. It's so astringent. So the wound started healing. The rocks were in the cloth. And so I had this experience a couple years ago where I was building a little rock wall. I made a permanent campsite on my property. I like camping in the summer, and this way I don't have to drive anywhere. So, but my mantra was, don't hurt your back, don't hurt your back. So I was carefully setting up an outdoor kitchen, and I was almost done. I was so happy I didn't hurt my back that I set a rock there carelessly and smashed my finger. And I thought, oh, that looks bad. So I just went out from here to the windows, found some yarrow, put it on my finger and wrapped it up, and it didn't hurt at all, and it stopped bleeding. So I thought it was, pretty good to go. And that evening when I opened it up, I should have got stitches. There was a big slice in it. But it never hurt. So I had a complete experience of the analgesic effect. It never even throbbed, except for when I changed the bandage out. So I really, really had a much bigger respect for yarrow after that. And when my daughter gets nosebleeds, I said, just go out and get a piece of yarrow. And she puts that in her nose and it stops bleeding immediately. If anyone in your family gets nosebleeds, you could probably go to the sugar beet and find some yarrow too, but it sounds ridiculous, but you know, it's worse to be bleeding out of your nose. So, anyway, I love sage too. I've used that as an antiseptic. And for a sore throat, like if I ever get a sore throat and I feel like I'm getting sick, I'll make just sage tea. It's actually very delicious with a little honey. And that was my first herb remedy I ever tried. And I found that I just never got sick after that. Usually it would go from a sore throat to a runny nose to a cough to having a cold. But it really works well. And chamomile, we think of it as a calming tea, but it also has really strong antiseptic effects. I used to always serve that to my kids when they got sick too, to the point where my older daughter said, I can't stand chamomile tea because it reminds me of being sick as a kid. So I ruined her on chamomile. So we can talk about alkaloids next, and these are the plants that end in E, like caffeine, nicotine, codeine, things like that. Allantoin, though, I did talk about that already, the component in comfrey. That is a cell proliferant. It aids in wound healing and also scarring. And the Latin name is Symphytum officinale, and whenever you learn about plants and the species is officinale or officinalis, it means it was the original in the original pharmacopoeia back in like when they named plants in the 1700s. So like lemon balm, Melissa officinalis, dandelion, Taraxacum officinale, Thymus officinalis. And so all of those were the original medicine. They were in the official pharmacopoeia. So in this alkaloid group, we have caffeine, the most popular alkaloid in America. And berberine. My sister, when she was over for Thanksgiving, was reading about berberine and experiments with type 2 diabetes, that there was a scientist that came up with a diabetes pharmaceutical drug, and he let the word out that you could get the same things out of nature, and they fired him. But that's like I have a sister-in-law who worked at Tufts University in Boston on eye health, and she said no matter what she studied for like 25 or 30 years, for eye health, if you just eat blueberries and spinach every week, you can't buy a pill that would be better than that. So, and they're both delicious, so there you go. So the berberine, which you could find in golden seal, barberry, which is actually becoming an invasive species in our woods now, and Berberis thunbergii, barberry, they have them in landscapes a lot, little short shrubs that have nice fall color and little red fruits on them. They are pretty, they have escaped into the wild, but the roots of those are bright yellow, and it's a really strong antiseptic medicine. Also anti-inflammatory, anti-carcinogenic, antibacterial, anti-malarial, antifungal, and as I just recently heard about, useful in type 2 diabetes. I've also heard cinnamon was good for that. And now with the internet, anything that I say, you can look it up. I mean, there's so much information. That's what's so wonderful about this day and age. You have, no matter what continent herbs you want to study or what era, you have everything from the folklore of what indigenous people did to the scientific double-blind studies. It's just wonderful. I mean, you have information there that will speak anyone's language on how these plants work, right at your fingertips. And then these plants are also helpful for ulcers, bites, and it stimulates bile. Typo, sorry, on the bites. Okay, so I love this because our blood is only one molecule different than chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is the green in plant leaves that creates all the sugars of all the sugars and all the carbohydrates. So plants and people were made to work together. That's what that tells me. The only difference is that the molecule different here is iron is in our blood and magnesium is in chlorophyll. So, I mean, by taking these plants, and nettles is the powerhouse of this, you're building better blood, you're just supporting your general overall health, and it's such a basic way. And, it's so accessible and so cheap, and, it's just what I want to sing the praises of. This is the reason I want to be alive, is to talk about this message of how accessible these medicines are. And I love to educate them on it. And if you didn't show up, I couldn't do that. So thank you for being here. Okay, so the next compound is polyphenols. Oh, I don't know what time we've got, but okay, so the phenolic compounds, these are all green plants have them. This is like salicylates, as in willow bark, or like what you find in aspirin. Aspirin was modeled after willow bark. And it's very similar to the plant meadowsweet. In fact, meadowsweet, you can take meadowsweet like aspirin for the anti-inflammatory quality, and it won't mess up your stomach in time. A doctor recently told me that aspirin ruins something with your platelets. But taking plants in the whole plant stage, like in a tea or a tincture, you have that protective quality of that whole plant. And, we all know the smell of wintergreen. Most analgesic mixtures have a wintergreen smell or sweet birch smell. They are very analgesic. Also, polyphenols, this group holds the colors that are in plants, which are so supportive to your blood and your heart. Things like grapes, strawberries, raspberries, pomegranates, which are in season now. And they contain these potent anti-cancer, antioxidant, and anti-atherosclerosis properties. And again, singing the praises of rosemary, peppermint, thyme, lemon balm, oregano, holy basil, which is the same as tulsi, sage, self-heal. These are very antiviral. And, this group of plants, I could give a whole talk just on that one paragraph here, because there's so many amazing qualities. Like lately I would take tulsi or the holy basil. It was traditional in India. They would drink it as a ritual in the morning. They have a plant outside their door and would honor the plants that support them, and take the tea to just help them stay well, because it has like antibacterial properties. In America, we've adopted it as a adaptogen, it's called, that helps to make us stay strong when we're under stress, because it's calming. But I really like it because it supports mental clarity. So I love coffee in the morning, but after a couple cups of coffee, I love tulsi because it gives me that clarity. And sometimes how coffee can make you jittery and you feel a little like your energy is going out too far. I feel really aligned and grounded with a cup of tulsi tea. And sage, too, great for the memory, as well as rosemary. Self-heal is a plant that is a wild plant in grasses around here. And that one it's like comfrey, but more astringent. I have it in a cream, and somebody called up and said it healed bed sores that somebody had been suffering with for months. We've had it work for shingles. But those are anecdotal stories, and I can't make any claims. It's not a claim. So then, self-heal, the plant self-heal. I brought a few of those creams downstairs, but look it up, Prunella vulgaris. It does grow in the wild, maybe like if you have a kind of a woodland places around where you can visit around here. It would be on the edge of the woods. It's very short. It only gets about like that tall, and it's in the mint family, but it doesn't smell. It's one of the very few mints that has no essential oil content. So then coumarins, they smell like new mown hay. Those are very anti-inflammatory and tonic to the veins. good for edema, varicose veins, hemorrhoids, and we have a cream based on horse chestnut. The FDA said I could call it very close vein cream, but then they changed their mind, so now it's vein toning cream. But that's a classic for vein health. I've had some good results from that. Okay, there it is. So, you know, all of our creams come in a sunflower oil organic from Wisconsin. And then here are just some of the other plants. Gutacola is great for vein health. St. John's wort helps to repair nerve endings. White oak bark is so astringent. It just comes from the oak tree, well, the white oak. And in fact, people use that as a mouthwash for reseeding gums because it's so astringent, it pulls things together. And my sister used to use it even for cavities, that it's so astringent. It's hard for me to even believe that one, but I looked it up and there is some research on that. Speaking of the antiviral herbs, the lemon balm has been proven to shorten the duration and lessen the symptoms of the herpes virus. We have it in a lip balm and in a cream, but you know, so these plants have the research. It's just they're very cheap and accessible, and our culture is more set up for, you know, companies to, oh, never mind. Let's see. Okay, so why not try herbs first for common ailments? We'll go here instead. Like, anyway, I just, look at that. I mean, what is not seductive and easy to believe? There's nothing fake about that. You know, these plants are here to heal us. This is just straight out of nature. You know, and I know there's times to take pharmaceutical drugs, but every drug that you take, your body only can use about 20%, and the rest is peed into our water system, and it ends up in the municipal water system. It is not removed yet. I think this is a really big problem. This scares the heck out of me that everyone's on antidepressants, you know, if you're on municipal water systems, and let's not even go down that path. But what's not to trust here, right? Look at all these beautiful things. This is my choice of medicine. Okay, so, you know, how do you use these plants? Well, you can cook them in olive oil and extract them that way for topical. You can make them into tea just by picking them out of the garden, drying them. A nice way to dry herbs, if you don't want to invest much money, is to just put them in a paper bag throughout the summer. Put them on top of your refrigerator where there's a little bit of heat going up, and you just take that paper bag and crunch it together like this, and the stems and the leaves separate, and you can easily separate them like that. You can make your own teas. You can support your local herbalist. But all of these herbs do such fantastic things that, you know, I just am grateful you give me the pleasure of singing their praises today. Another way you can have them is this is very popular in America right now, called tinctures. These are herbs that we collect fresh, or you can do it with them dried as well. And you extract them into, we use brandy, but any alcohol works. The brandy acts as a solvent and pulls the qualities out and acts as a preservative. They're pressed and strained and bottled. So all of these qualities are already prepared, and this is really nice for traveling or for a really quick herb dose. Okay, and then I've got these various ones, the hypnotic sleep aid. This is how I got my account at Murr's Apothecary. Mr. Murr's wife was an insomniac, and I left this sample there for about 2 years, and she finally picked it up, and she said this is the only thing that works for her. They're a really good, really excellent at helping us share our herbs with people in Chicago. Another one I just quickly want to point out is liver kidney, because our filter system is our liver and kidneys, and who drives a car who would never think of getting their oil filter changed? Like nobody, because, you wouldn't do that to your car because it would run funky and break down. But, we don't think of our own filter systems, our liver and our kidneys, and simple plants like dandelion and burdock, yellow dock, like really these are considered weeds. These are such powerhouses to help us to just, for me, thrive better and to filter out some of the things that my liver and kidneys could use some assistance with. So you can use herbs to support health and stamina. I see that I'm going a little too long here, so I'm going to speed it up. There are plants that are tonic that you can take every day, and there are plants that are more for acute situations that you just take when you're having the issue. But anyway, there's just like a whole world of plants out there for you to work with or play with, I don't know. So through my decades of working with nature, I see how nature supports us and how we're connected. Like this is a very important part for me. So for a long time, I studied herbs and I was amazed how they supported us. Then I went with organic and how that supported the soil. Then I added the Old Farmer's Almanac and added the planets to it. And so that was where I recently wrote that book on the celestial garden, growing herbs, vegetables, and flowers in sync with the moon and the zodiac. And I found that by adding that layer of the planets, really, we're all one. And it's such a beautiful thing to think about life, and get up and feel like that, like we're not alone, that really we're all one, and every action that you can do will make a difference. And it's just so beautiful to see things in a much bigger picture like this. And it's part of my message that I really like to share right now. As I just said, I really like incorporating the bigger picture. And if nothing else, it's really nice to wake up and think, well, what is the energy like today? Is it, dry influence, wet influence? Is it expanding energy or contracting? There are the right times. You can use those all like tools, like you have a toolbox by just tuning into what are these energies doing for the day. And there's just a picture of me. This is my favorite place next to teaching, is in the greenhouse starting plants in the spring. So we do have an herb plant sale in the spring, and it's so fun for me to be able to share my plants with you. So, and then here's a picture of my book. This was such a great project for during COVID, was to study the connection of how this is working. And I had been doing gardening by the moon for about 30 years. In fact, I found some of my Old Farmer's Almanacs from the 80s. Definitely I need to clean things out, but I know I would push them towards the garbage and they'd come back. I love those books. Anyway, this was a really fun project for me. So the last slide is just a picture of our apothecary. I'm sorry, it's this text box flew off the side there, but what it is trying to tell you is where my products are available in Chicago, which is at Mer's Apothecary, your local sugar beet store, and there's a wellness center way on the east side. It's in like a hospital or some medical center, but I'm not sure what the location is for that wellness center. So we can sign up for events at our farm. Mila said she's going to get some people to come to our open farm day. But I have a newsletter about once a month that gives herb information and can talk about events so that hopefully you can visit my farm someday. And also my daughter does a fantastic job with Instagram and Facebook, so you get pictures. She does really beautiful posts. So there's a picture from a drone, and I just really appreciate you coming today, and I hope that you can really take some of this information and use it to enhance your well-being. I mean, these plants are so accessible, so, my hope is that your time was really worthwhile by taking some of these tips home. So thank you so much for having me today.
We have time for just about 2 questions, so
You know, people spray herbicides and pesticides that are near you. So if there's no wall in the air, so it's going to blow onto your property, do you wash them really well, or do you know, when you pick your herbs?
Well, I was very blessed to get this piece of property
Okay.
where there's no other agriculture around me. You can see that we're surrounded by woods.
Right.
Like this was just such a, like, I call it one of my big lucky breaks, because there is no agriculture. But you brought up a really good point, because even certified organic produce and herbs are getting traces of chemicals, you know, because it volatilizes. Like,
Yes.
you brought up a good point, because we're in a closed system. As I said, what we do, our actions are going to reach another person. And I find it very appalling that all these chemicals that we know cause cancer are legal for people to spray on a windy day with no repercussions. And people like me who just don't use chemicals, I have to write down every move I make, prove I did it, pay to get inspected, and it just seems a little bit backwards.
Yeah. But would you wash them really well?
No, you don't really wash the leaves. And also, if you're in an area you're wondering if any chemical sprays came over,
Yeah.
if you don't see any curled leaves or anything, that's where you would know that you got hit by some herbicides. You know, like if any of your foliage in your yard started looking yellow or just, you know, some bad form,
All right.
deformed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
one more question. Oh, perfect.
Thank you. Very good program, thank you.
Thank
But I
you.
just, looking at the elderberry, the flowers look like Queen Anne's lace from a distance, does it?
Yes, except for they're not on one little stem coming out of the ground. They're in a shrub that's about 8 feet tall or 6 feet tall.
Oh, wow,
Their
okay.
growing habit is so different.
All right.
Yes. And the botanical form of Queen Anne's lace is called a umbel. In other words, all of the little florets are on exactly the same kind of form around the center stalk, whereas on elderberry they're more forked, and it's technically called a cyme. It's a different form, and once you start looking closely at plants, you get the hang of this. But when I first took horticulture school, I couldn't believe there was all these different forms. I had never even noticed.
Okay.
Okay, and I'll be at my booth so I can answer questions there too. Thank you.